Hi, this is Stu, and welcome to our little series which is called Stretching for Yoga. And you can see that I'm smiling already because, of course, that name alone will get some of you thinking, what the hell is this idiot talking about? We already do loads of stretching in the yoga as it is. And of course we do. But yoga, the physical practice, yoga is also more than the physical practice itself, and the physical practice is more than just stretching. It's got a strength component, it's got a focus component, it's got the breath component. But what we find is that sometimes, particularly if we're a vinyasa-based practitioner, whether it's Ashtanga or vinyasa flow or that type of thing, is that we can miss out either completely on areas that we need to open because it's not in our sequence, or that we're not in something long enough to work on a particular area, or that it's just very difficult because of the complexity of the posture to get into the area that we need. My idea is that many of these movements are what we might call multi-segmental, that is, they involve more than one joint, and that a particular area that is tight or resilient will still be tight and resilient. And if you're moving in other joints around it, mostly it's the other joints around that take the strain. And it's difficult to get into that bit that you really need. So sometimes it's worth taking things aside and just say, I want to work on this particular aspect, yeah? We have to bear in mind, of course, that the body is interconnected, everything affects everything else, but there will definitely be little pockets here and there that actually take more of an important role in doing this, that, and the other, and therefore more of an important role in restricting this, that, and the other, okay? So we're going to work through most of the body and a lot of the common movements, and the idea to have in your mind is that, each joint has multiple ranges of motion around it, and depending on the type of joint, the more movements are available. Just because you're open in one of those directions, it has no resemblance to the other directions. So you could be very, very comfortable sitting in Baddha Konasana, sitting in all of your Padmasana type postures. But when it comes to turning the hip the other way, maybe you feel really restricted. Or when it comes to folding forwards or going backwards, you feel really restricted. So the movement can still be at the same joint, but just in a different direction will involve different muscles, different lines of pull, so you can be restricted in one or the other of those, or maybe many of them, yeah? So we're going to be trying to break it down in just little sections. So it seems very analytical and very concise, but just also bear in mind that most of the time when we're doing the postures themselves, it involves whole body movements, chains of muscles working to stabilize, chains of muscles working to lengthen to get us into the posture. But we're just trying to get into those little tight bits that sometimes don't want to play ball. So this first video is looking at those postures, or that external rotation of the hip. And of course there's many postures in yoga, asana, that involves those movements. So anytime we're in a Janushirshasana type posture, it involves external rotation of the hip. Anytime we're taking our feet into Padmasana, I'll just put one in for the moment, then that involves external rotation of the hip. Yeah, many things involve external rotation of the hip. We'll find as we go through the series that I have sometimes a little, what I call a test posture, so that you can see whether you feel that you're actually restricted in that particular range of motion and whether you need to do the exercises to look at them. So my little test posture, and it will actually become one of the postures we use also to work on opening the hips, is this one called double pigeon or firelog posture, where you have both of your shins stacked one on top of the other, both of your feet in a dorsiflexed position, okay? And the idea is that you don't let your foot slide down your leg, so as it all becomes very nice and comfortable, that you keep your ankle bone on top of your fleshy part of the thigh, which is probably the most uncomfortable bit, okay? So, if I was like fully open in external rotation of the hips, so now we're getting the idea that we can't just say I'm open in the hips, because what direction am I open in, yeah? So we will also mention the direction. So if I was fully open in external rotation of the hips, then I would find that both of my knees would sit down on top of one another very nicely without me putting any pressure on it. So here, you can see there's a little bit of bounce in the top leg, yeah? Because it's not fully resting down on my leg. Now, If you want to try this for yourself, you might find that you're either further down than myself, or you might find that you're up here, yeah? If you're up here, it means you are restricted in external rotation of the hip, and that will be evident in some of the postures that you do, and you'll either be compromising somewhere else or trying to make do, or it will be restricting you from doing that posture. So how are we going to work on it? This one we'll come back to, but it's a little bit more complex, yeah? Now, some postures involve obviously more than one movement, and Baddha Konasana is a really nice one that you can do that works on some aspects of the external rotation, but also some aspects of the inner groin too, which is our ability to abduct the hips, yeah? Now, you'll notice that I'm sitting back against the wall, and I would suggest that when you're doing these type of openers, that you find a nice wall that you can sit back against, because it stops the hips and the pelvis dropping back. And when you drop back, basically you're escaping out of a lot of the work that we're trying to do. So find yourself a nice wall, and what you want to do is you want to scoot your bum right back against the wall. Now this one has a bit of a ledge here, which is not so nice, okay? We're going to feel that. So if you can find one again without that sort of thing, it allows you to get really close to the wall. And so you can just start by sitting in Baddha Konasana, yeah? And just draw your feet as close to your groin as you can. I think it's nice, you can see already that I'm wanting to bring my head forward, but it's a nice postural thing actually, if to train your stance as well at the same time, to take your head back and place the back of your head on the wall. So now I'm working on lengthening my spine at the same time as I'm actually opening my hips, okay? And now I can just place my hands down on my thighs and let them just relax into it, yeah? So this particular posture, depending on where you're more restricted, you'll either feel it deep in the groin here, because you're more restricted in the adductors, which are sitting here, or you might find it a little bit more around the back, which means it's the external rotation element that you're more restricted in. So this is a bit one of those postures that's, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, yeah? Now I'm going to be introducing a type of stretching that we'll use throughout the series, which I find, you know, scientifically, they would say is the most effective type of stretching, yeah? It's not necessarily something you'd want to do in the practice, because it involves a little bit of this and that, might disrupt your flow, but it's something you can definitely do in these outside sessions. So it goes like this. It's called PNF stretching, stands for proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Loads of old scientific gobbledygook. Basically all it means is you're going to contract the muscle, and then you're going to relax the muscle afterwards and take up the slack of the movement. Okay, so how would we do it in this Baddha Konasana? And this is a great one for explaining the concept to you that we'll then use throughout this little series. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to place my hands lightly on my legs, all right? And I'm not actually going to be pushing down. I could push my knees down to the floor, and I feel a little bit more intensity here. But what we're doing is we're working on a reflex arc, and I don't actually need to push down with my hands. What I'm creating with my hands is something to push against. I'm just creating a wall to push against. So I place my hands here, and for myself, I'm placing my arms against the back of the wall here. Now, if your legs are a little bit higher, you might find that it gets a little bit uncomfy, but just find whatever is nice. There's a good thing about being against the wall is you can brace your arms against the wall. And then from your starting position, you're just going to press up with your thighs. Now, if I took my hands out the way, this is what would happen. I'd come from here, I'd come to higher up, yeah? So what I'm trying to do is close my legs together, and I'm going to stop myself with my hands. Now, it's important the intensity that you work at doesn't need to be any more than 30% effort. So you don't need to be sitting here going, trying to overpower your arms, yeah? You will, when you read about PNF, if you decide to go and often read, sometimes they say maximal contraction. Just more likely to hurt yourself, yeah? You don't need to do that at all. You just need to do 20 to 30% effort with this particular type of thing that we're doing. Okay, so you're going to be squeezing and pushing, and you're just going to be breathing, okay? And you're going to take 5 breaths, and you're pressing the same, whether it's an inhale or an exhale, you're pressing exactly the same, okay? Not maximum. You can see I can quite easily talk to you as I'm doing this, all right? And I'm trying to keep my legs exactly where they are. I'm trying not to let them rise up just by pressing down with my hands. After I've done about 5 breaths, then I'm going to relax, and we should find that my legs just sink a little bit into the mat, yeah? So what we're going to do then is we just take up that new position. So I replace my arms, I settle down into the mat, and I find this new position, and then I press again, okay? And you would do that 3 times, so you would do 3 cycles, yeah? If you then want to just chill out and hang there a little bit, just sitting here, all I would say to you is, if you're very high up and you feel any discomfort around the knees, then put some bolsters, you know, you could use something like this and just stick it under here so that you're not hanging too much in the air, yeah? You want, you know, quite a bit of your thigh on the floor really, or against something. One other thing you can do, and sometimes you might choose to do this in the posture itself actually, is to activate the heels. So you could actually press the heels together, same 20 to 30% effort. So this time my heels, if I put my finger between my heels, and I'm going to try and squash my finger basically, that's what I'm trying to do. And then this is that same sort of thing, I'm activating, then I'm relaxing, and I'm dropping my heels, my knees back towards the floor, okay? So this is a really nice opener, and you know, if you want to change it into a sort of a more yin-y style posture where you're going to hang around for a bit of time, you know, my feet are open like a book, makes a nice rest for a book or for watching TV, and you can just sit there for 20 minutes or something just watching TV, and eventually it will help. With the PNF, only do it every other day, don't do it every day, yeah? And the way I think of these little exercises is a little bit like, you know, you want to go and play tennis, but you've got a dodgy backhand, yeah, you don't really, what you're going to do in the game is you're going to keep running around and playing a forehand, so you don't actually have to play your backhand. And it's the same, we escape out of these tight areas. What you need to do is get on the court and do some backhand drills. This is our backhand drills, yeah? Okay, so the next exercise we're going to do is working a little bit more specifically on the external rotation. And I'm going to give you some options here, all right? So the first one is, if we were thinking we were going back to our double pigeon test, okay, and you're like this, all right, then this particular posture for opening is not going to be too good for you, because what you'd need to do is you'd need to get a block and put it under this knee, you need to get a block and put it under this knee, and then it's hard for me to work, because I'm thinking, well, how much do I let the block out? How do I do this? You know, it's not the best. There's something better that you can do, all right? So what we would do instead is we would start you with lying up the wall, okay? So what you're going to do, and you'll see that each one of these postures involves the leg in this sort of position, yeah? We're only going to be doing one leg at a time, some of it, sometimes twice, yeah? But it's always going to be parallel to our body, well, parallel to the side of the mat as we are here. So what we were going to do is, this is our first one. So you're lying on your back. Now you put your bum right up against the wall, okay? And then what you do is you just bend one leg very, very slightly, and then you're taking your opposite leg and you're crossing it over. Again, so the ankle is pressing into the thigh, okay? And then what you do is you just slide your leg down the wall. Now, I could keep sliding it down the wall, and what would happen is my bum would come off the floor, okay? But then I'm just escaping out of the posture, yeah? So what I'm going to do is, as I'm coming down the wall, I'm now also, overemphasize it for you so you can see, I'm going to push my bum towards the floor. So I'm trying to keep all my bum on the floor and also up against the wall, yeah? And now I can really feel it getting into the hip, and you'll feel it on this leg that's crossed, you'll feel it into the hip, yeah? And then you would hang out there for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, okay? And then as it begins to loosen and you find a little bit more comfort, then you're going to move your foot a little bit further down the wall, yeah? You can take this hand and place it on the knee and just reinforce that external rotation a little bit by pushing the knee out. Just don't push too hard, and try and, can you see what happens to my hips if I push too strong? It's all that happens is my hips start moving, yeah? So I want to keep my hips stable, otherwise I'm just moving something else instead, okay? If even that, if you get to here and you really can't get any further down than there, then maybe we need something, another step back for you. And the next step back would be to do the same sort of thing, but lying on the floor. So all we're doing is crossing over again. This time, thread the needle, I think this one is called. Yeah, I'm just going to take hold now. I can either take hold of over the top of my knee, but if my knee is a bit sensitive, I can take underneath my knee. And then I'm doing the same thing. I'm drawing my knee towards my chest, but at the same time trying to press my pelvis back down to the floor. Yeah? And then I'm going to feel it again in the hip of this leg, the hip of the leg that's crossed over. Yeah? This is a little bit more easy to escape out of it, basically, because of the fact that I can roll myself up. Yeah? So I don't want to roll up too much because I'll find I'll lose the stretch. Yeah? Good. Okay. So if you've got used to those, or those are like too easy for you, we'll show you the next one up. Okay? So again, I want to be against the wall. It's even better if I can sit in Paschimottanasana, slide myself back so as my bum is right back against the wall. Now my back is against the wall. Okay, now this is the bit where basically your body will cheat if it can, so you need to keep your eyes open for that. I bend one leg very slightly, like it the same as it was up the wall. Then I'm going to take my hand underneath my ankle, so I'm not pulling on my ankle here, and cross my leg. Now, okay, so this is the bit where you need to be careful. You want to be able to pull your leg in without your bum scooting away from the wall. Because if your bum scoots away, we're escaping out of the stretch again. So what we're doing is we're taking hold of our leg, we're pulling it up, and we're lifting. Yeah. Now, if I can't get this foot on the floor, if it's up like that, yeah, because it's a little bit further away, then you're not going to be able to hold it for very long, and you're just going to be using a lot of muscular strength to actually hold this position. So if you can't get that foot flat on the floor without sliding away from the wall, then do the one we showed you earlier with your leg up the wall, okay? If you can be in this position, then again we want the ankle bone pressing into that soft part of the thigh. We want to dorsiflex our foot, and then we just want to chill out, yeah, and hang here for a while, all right? Maybe hanging isn't a very good word to use. I think I'll try and scrub that from my dictionary, because we never really want to be hanging in anything, do we? So we want to be actually sort of semi-active, but also relaxing, yeah, at the same time. And with all these things, basically you just stay here for a little bit, all right? 3 minutes maybe, just plucking that figure out the sky. Don't start with anything too long, just see how you react to these things. Maybe start with a minute. And then after that, we can say, okay, maybe I've relaxed a little bit, maybe I can move this leg in, all right? All the time again, making sure that we don't scoot away from the wall, all right? And so then just be here. Now, you'll notice that we're using this leg as a lever, basically, to access the hip. Whenever we use something as a lever, there's always a chance that somewhere down that lever won't be too happy with it. I mean, this is relatively safe, but if you start feeling discomfort around the knee, then don't do it. It just means that this is not for you, yeah? I don't agree that everybody should be able to do everything, even when it comes to openers. It might just be that your particular geometry doesn't suit this particular opener. So if you feel any pain, particularly around the knee, just don't do it, okay? So this is one of my favorite openers, and a lot of these openers are not mine. I've got them from other teachers around the world, so please take credit. If you think I got it from you, then you're welcome to it, yeah? I'm just going to use whatever I find is effective and I can get my hands on. So this is a really nice little opener for that external rotation of the hip, okay? We'll do one more on this particular thing, on this theme of external rotation, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this double pigeon. So if this double pigeon wasn't accessible for you, then now is not the time to do it. Do more of these other ones until you're a little bit more open. Once you can get your knee relatively close to the floor, close to the other foot, then you're ready to do this next exercise, all right? Now, you might notice that when I'm sitting back against the wall, I have a little gap here, yeah? But if I would say to you, show me your double pigeon, what's it like? And you go, yeah, look, I'm quite handy, I'm folding, it's settled down. What have I done? My knee is down now. What I've done is I've taken my whole pelvis with my leg, and as I bring it forwards, my leg comes down too, yeah? So we're not really accessing, it's not giving us a true realization of our ability to externally rotate when we take our weight a little bit forwards. It's different when we come further forwards than we're really going for it again. But to start with, all that happens is I move my pelvis with my leg. Yeah, so it seems like I'm further down than I am. Yeah, so realistically, I have that much difference between the two. Okay, as long as we're somewhere around here, you know, this may be slightly off, in which case I might get a cushion and just put it under that knee slightly. This knee might be slightly off. And then from there, what we're going to do is, first of all, we can just sit here and see if it relaxes a little bit. And then we want to start working our way forwards, okay? So there's sort of 3 different options here, each a little bit harder than the other. Depending on where your tightness is, you might find that the first option or the second option is a little bit more difficult than one or the other, but the third generally seems to be always the toughest for both people. So your first option is then, once you're a little bit comfy, is to start coming forwards, yeah? And then you're just going to rest your arms on the floor. If you can go a little bit further, we're going to walk further, and then we're going to take our hands, our head down towards the floor. And then you would just sort of hang out there for a while. I've used that hang out again, haven't I? So we will stay there and breathe for a little while. All the time making sure that we haven't shuffled our fire log, that it's still nice and symmetrical. Okay, so this should be, or maybe, the easiest version. The next version is we add a little bit of a twist to it. And you can do these in sequence if you want, but I'm going to the knee side, not the foot side. So this is my next option, is to the knee side. And you should be feeling it, again, we'll just reinforce this, in the hip, the top of the bum on the bent leg side. Yeah, well, both bent, the top leg side, shall we put it that way? Okay, so now we're coming towards the knee of the top leg. All right, and we're just going to reach over, and we're just going to fold forwards over that knee. And we'd stay there again for a few breaths. I'm just making this quick because I tend to make all these videos far longer than we intend in the first place, so I won't be holding them. Nick is laughing behind the camera because he's thinking, yeah, he goes again. And so then what we're doing is the last option, which is onto the foot, the top foot side. And this is the hardest, and you can really feel it quite intense sometimes. So again, we don't want any pain around the knee because we're working into the hip, yeah? So as long as we're okay, we come and we turn our chest and our sternum towards our foot, and then we're coming forwards towards that foot and over that foot. And then again, we would hold it there for, I don't know, 5, 10 breaths, 20 breaths, depending on how new you are to these particular postures. Okay, and so then we've done one side, and of course then it's time to change the others, so you might want to come out nice and easily, just shake your feet out, and then we would change over. So again, foot parallel, this one on top, and then away you go. Either first forward, then the knee, and then the foot on this side, yeah? You might also want to see how that influences your forward folding, because even though these are rotational movements, they do influence our ability to flex and forward fold. So if you can have a little go at these just out of interest for yourself, just do a little Paschimottanasana before you start, and then do these hip openers, and then do it again, and see how that influenced not only your ability to do, say, the Janus, yeah, but also your ability to do your just a normal standard forward fold. And I think you'll be surprised that after you've done the hip openers, it does actually help with your forward folding as well. So if you're one of those people that struggles with their forward folding, and we will have a little video on that sort of thing, then it may be worth doing some of these hip openers before you do your practice, okay? Because then you might find it just takes a little bit of strain out of the body in the forward folding. Good. So have a play with these. Hope you enjoy them. And we'll move on to a little bit of a different movement with the next one. See you soon.